Good morning. Excited to see you all here. The topic today, they asked me to come and talk to you about statistics. As you can see, as you will see, if I turn the thing the right direction, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm having technical difficulties. Wouldn't that be exciting for those of you who I help with their technical difficulties? Let's see if I do it manually. Let's try that. If in doubt, James will help me.
I got you. There you go.
I didn't hold my mouth right. Had to be a pretty guy come out and do it for me. As you can see, my title is Communications Director. So I'm not a statistician. I'm not a economist. I did bring you some statistics, but I approached the question from a real estate standpoint and from a communications standpoint. And I said to myself, what makes Corvallis unique? I'm going to tell you my impressions. I also pulled a couple of my friends who live and work in Corvallis, and then I'll bring you the statistics as well. A couple of my friends who live and work in Corvallis, I'm going to share that stuff with you. It came out really interesting to me. The things that they had to say about Corvallis were similar to what I thought, but I've done a lot of trainings in Corvallis with real estate brokers. That's mostly my job. And I love coming here, but what I tell most of the time to my classes is one of the reasons I like coming here is because you're kind of weird. It sort of reminds me of being home with my family, the ones that aren't in jail yet. So Corvallis to me is a little eclectic, a little hippy-dippy trippy, a little intellectual, just different, just on a different plane. The statistics showed me something completely different, of course, because statistics don't have much flavor. But I did bring you some statistics on what makes Corvallis a sweet spot in the valley. Before I get started, I will admit that there are always a few problems with statistics. One of the things I like about having worked with Willamette Valley Multiple Listing Service for 16 years is that I know where the problems are in the statistics. For example, when you're looking at days on market, stats for days on market are wrong because a real estate agent might put a listing on the market, the seller might withdraw it and put it right back on the market, but the days on market will then start over, right? So there are problems with statistics. The thing I like about the fact that we have a huge depth of time working with the statistics the way that we do them is, yes, the exact statistic 4 days on market is wrong, but the trend over the last 25, 30 years, the way we've been doing them is correct. So if you just watch the trending, you get a great picture of how statistics work. You all probably know the quote that was popularized by Mark Twain, there are 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And that, I think, is one of the reasons. But do you guys know the Aaron Levinstein quote? Statistics are like a bikini. What they reveal is suggestive, but what they conceal is vital. My next slide was going to be a picture of Lanny Zeller in a bikini. But I understood there might be some children in the audience, so I decided to keep it classy and bring you some statistics. One of the things that made that my perception of Corvallis as sort of a sweet spot in the valley was that Corvallis didn't get hit as hard in the recession, that it's somewhat recession resistant, if you will. And in terms of number of sales, if you isolate that figure alone, you barely had a recession. You flattened out, and then you increased. So in terms of sales, a number of sales alone, and I looked mostly for this presentation, I looked mostly at residential sales. So that's what we're talking about, residential, including acreage types of properties, but you barely had a recession if you look at this slide. Also featured on the slides throughout are some properties that have sold or are for sale in your area. I used all local stuff. If you need a good real estate broker, I know 1 or 2, just let me know. The next slide shows you, indexed to 2010, what that looks like in terms of number of sales. And what I wanted to brag about, my territory is Lynn, Benton, Marion, and Polk. So I work the Corvallis area, but I also work the greater Valley area between Eugene and Portland. And indexed to 2010, this is how we did. We did way better in terms of our 4-county area, way better than national numbers over the last 5 years. And you can see Lynn and Benton combined is the yellow number that has the lowest track record if you want. Then WVMLS on the whole is the blue number. And we had more market drop during the recession than the other two areas. And then you see Corvallis just performing all the way across. Barely a drop, flattened out, and then went up. And so in terms of number of sales, in fact, no drop whatsoever. And so I thought that was an interesting number in terms of how our market did on the whole. We also have higher property values in the Corvallis area than any of my other areas. And I did ask my friends that when I posed the question, what makes Corvallis sort of a sweet spot in the valley? And they gave me a lot of different things. It's the heart of the valley. OSU is here. So many natural resources, your parks, your clean water, your clean air, proximity to recreation. But I thought what one of my friends said was particularly indicative of how people feel about Corvallis. She says, Rhonda, you should know that the OSU baseball team are twice national champions on their way to a third one this year. Go Beavers. And that sort of encapsulates how people seem to feel about their town here in Corvallis, that pride, that Beaver pride. I have a friend in Salem. She actually lives and works in Salem, has for many years, but evidently she went to school here because when you go in her house, you're overwhelmed by that orange color. So she has this whole room that's like a shrine to the Beavers. So this is important stuff about the property values, but in terms of statistics, here's what it looks like. Corvallis is a sweet spot in our valley in terms of property values. And this is a little bit busy, but all you really need to look at is the orange line, because that's where your average sales price is compared to our other cities. And I'm talking about Marion, Polk, Lynn, and Benton, so I'm talking about Salem, Albany, Dallas, what else did I throw in there? Lebanon. And then I also put Silverton in there. Silverton's that last light blue line. And you can see that Silverton also has a little niche in our valley as well in terms of high property values. So a couple of places where those values have really held on over the last 12 months on average. And really, this chart would look the same no matter what year I pulled it. Pretty much just exactly like this. So I think that's very also indicative of what makes Corvallis sort of a sweet spot. But why do you hold your property values? Why is there this lessening of volatility in the area? If you look at this one, I thought this one was really interesting. And 2010 is not an error. That just shows you that as there was a percent of change in sales price, during the recession, we had quite a drop. You see there in 2009. Blue is WVMLS on the whole, so Lynn, Benton, Marion, and Polk. Quite a huge drop. And Corvallis got hit, obviously. Everybody got hit, but much less volatility in your area. And then in 2009 and 2010, you didn't have further reductions. And that's amazing to me. I mean, we were suffering. The country was suffering. And Corvallis sort of just sat here and went, oh, we'll hang on and see what happens. And then 2011, another sort of mild hit, and then you had the growth in 2012 and 2013. So pretty impressive numbers in terms of where you're just staying close to what these values are and not having a ton of change, which is great for buyers and sellers, right? For real estate agents, for appraisers, for everybody who works in a market. When you have less volatility, you have, obviously less upheaval. Both of the folks that I polled and the statistics show that you had fewer distressed properties. The foreclosure thing across the nation was huge. People hit hard, lots and lots and lots of sad stories. You guys had fewer distressed properties or distressed sales, which would include foreclosures, short sales, and bank owned. I'm not saying you didn't have them. And in the Willamette Valley, on the whole, we got hit a lot less hard than the national average. As we all know, some places had huge bubbles that burst, but you guys did better than WMLS on the whole as well. This shows you in sort of a graphical image. What graphical? It makes it sound like it's dirty. I should have brought some dirty pictures. It would have been more fun. I don't know if James would have. This is a very controlled environment. I don't know if James would have let me, but I could have slipped them in. Corvallis had a much lower impact, or was impacted in a much smaller way than WVMLS on the whole, which again, WVMLS was hit less hard than many, many areas, including in the state as a whole and nationally. So I thought this was a perfect slide to bring to show that. In terms of the property values and the fewer distressed sales, those are things that make Corvallis sort of a sweet spot, but there are some challenges in the Corvallis area, and so I thought I would pull a couple of those out. Some of the challenges are that high sticker price when you're talking about selling properties in the real estate market. That's a little bit harder to sell than if I were to go to Sweet Home. I could get something a lot less, right, if I wanted to. And I actually really like the country, and Sweet Home has some friends who live there. So the sticker price in Corvallis could be a little off-putting. The higher property taxes, because you do hold those market values longer, so the higher property tax could be considered something that would be potentially a negative. And then the low inventory. You might not be aware of this next one, but this one is relatively interesting. And this one is different than a lot of areas in our market. This little chart shows you, 7 to 10 months of inventory is maybe average. That means that you have enough homes to sell 7 to 10 months worth before you'd completely run out, for example. What's the other term they use for this? Shout it out, you'll get a prize. Months of inventory, or I'll think of it. The thing is, in Corvallis, you guys are down to less than 4 months worth of inventory. That means you don't have enough listings out there to sell. That's a good thing for sellers, right? But it makes it a little bit tough. You don't have a ton of listings on the market. So that's a challenge for this area. There's not a bunch of stuff to show people. And so I thought that was an interesting statistic that really sort of helped me realize, why is Corvallis sort of the sweet spot in the valley? Lots and lots of reasons, but one of them is when there's not a lot of something, people really want that, right? So that's a good one, and as well as a challenge. And so let's talk about turning challenges into opportunities. The thing about Corvallis is people want to be here. They go to school here, their kids go to school here, they have you have lots of medical facilities, lots of engineers, lots of scientists coming and going. It's amazingly beautiful here. I've put my kayak in here many, many times. I live in Salem. I have a choice of going 45 minutes in any direction and finding awesome places to kayak, but I've come here more than once to put in. You have city amenities here without city hassles. It's easy to get in and out of places here. It's easy to get around. You have that Saturday market. So people want to come here. And you have these weirdos that wear stuff like that. You have that sort of eclectic image. One of my friends who I asked what makes Corvallis a sweet spot, both of the people who responded talked about all of this stuff. They hit on every single one of the points that I've brought out. But this one said, what makes Corvallis beautiful is that it's a little bit quaint, a little bit quirky, a little bit artsy, a little bit intellectual, which is so funny because she's all of those things. She just described herself. And that's what Corvallis was to her. But what I thought it was really interesting was that she tied it in. She's a real estate broker. She tied it into your sales price, holding the values and the ability to sell a property for just a good price. She said, real estate brokers here don't have to turn over as many properties to make a good living, which gives them more time to spend with their families and on community volunteer efforts, because we take a lot of pride in our community. And I thought, she's not talking about making millions of dollars. She's talking about taking the fact that you can make a good living in Corvallis and turn it into making Corvallis a good place to have that good living. So I thought that was really good, a really good time. And I didn't prompt her for any of this either. I just said what makes Corvallis a sweet spot. So I thought that was very interesting stuff as well. So other challenges. We can make these into opportunities if we talk about it being recession resistant. That's amazing for buyers and sellers, because if you talk about those statistics that I showed you where you didn't have the downtrend that the nation had, you had barely a leveling off, the sales price dipped some but not much, what a great place to invest. What a great place to buy and know that if we have another one of those horrible national events, that maybe you're going to hang through it and be okay. The higher property values are great for sellers. It's a wonderful selling point. We have the highest property values in the area. So when we want to put a price on, let's put a reasonable marketing price, but we've got great prices out there now. The low inventory is great for sellers. Let's put your price on the market, your home on the market with a good price tag on it, and we'll be where we want to be in terms of being able to sell because people want to live here. And then there are some bargains nearby. So I'm talking all about Corvallis, but I love this entire valley. Let's talk about bargains nearby. Oh, I want to show you. This slide features a screenshot from my iPad. That's our WVMLS mobile app, so a little tiny commercial break. If you want to get our mobile app, it's free at the App Store, and it's called Goomzee, Goomzee. So it's free to you, it's free to the public, anybody can use it. So it's a really slick, cool thing. What you get for the money nearby. So in Corvallis, $299, which is basically your average sales price, $299. Gets you an awesome 3-bedroom, 2-bath with 1,900 square feet, built in the mid-'70s. So that's a baseline. In North Albany or Willamette, which are fairly close here, right? You get another sort of a half-bedroom, another half-bath, another 500 square feet, and 20 years newer on average. So some really good bargains nearby. If somebody can't do the sticker price in Corvallis, we go down from $299. I'm sure we've got some great values there. And that's actually a picture of a home. I can't remember if it was in North Albany or Willamette, but it's in one of the two. Just a beautiful home available there. So I thought that was fairly interesting as well. So nearby, I don't know if you would call those bedroom communities or not. I've never understood that term because I think dirty whenever I think of bedroom community. Means something completely different to me. No. So we're talking about sweet spots. Let's talk about the property profiles that are doing the best. So I brought you 3. I brought you it indexed by how fast they're selling, indexed by how close they are to the listing price to the asking price. I'm sorry, the sold price to the asking price. And then I brought average by the number of sales. So this is the first one. By days on market, these all sold the fastest, under 60 days. On average, they were $22,000 less than the average sale price. So bargains is what's selling fast, right? They were also 10 years older than the average year built. So a little bit older, a lot cheaper. And those ones are going less than 60 days. The next little sweet spot, these were, again, in terms of how close their sales price was to what the asking price was. And these properties were only a little bit of a bargain. They were only $13,000 less than the average price, and they were about 100 square feet higher than the average square footage. So they were a little bit lower in price, a little bit bigger. And so those went closer to the asking price. That kind of makes sense. And then the last little sweet spot I brought you, this is the dead on average by the number of sales. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,900 square feet property are selling the most. Maybe because you have the most to sell, I don't know, I'm not a statistician. They were average price $299, built in the 70s. And so that's your dead on average. With those averages, you sort of have an idea of where you can position things when you're talking about people or if you're thinking about selling your own home. So I think that's important to note. Also, again, those are pictures of things in the area, and I just thought people are doing some great things with MLS photos, but if you want to laugh, go on YouTube and look for horrible MLS photos. There are some good ones out there. My favorite one, when I first started working at MLS, we had one in the system where somebody was standing at the window when the photographer took the photo, and he was wearing like a Speedo. It was very, very disturbing, but fun to remember. Nightmares and all. the last thing I want to bring to you, my boss, when he first was telling me, I know you know how to do trainings, but I don't know if you know how to do trainings with real estate brokers. So you need to, when you start a presentation, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Because evidently y'all need a lot of repetition. I'm not saying, it was him, not me. So let's recap, shall we? Let me just look at my notes here. Lies, damn lies, statistics, recession-resistant weirdos, high property values, baseball, beavers, fewer distressed sales, challenges and opportunities, buyers, sellers, beavers, Lanny Zeller in a bikini. Did we get it all? By the way, I am selling 8x10 glossies in the lobby after the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.